Okay, so apologies for that breaking transmission, but if you're just joining in for the very first time, get to realize that this is Real Talk with Simi, and this is that Facebook, this is that Instagram account, but maybe with the Facebook era, where you get mental health talks, where you get mental health gist, where you get mental health solutions, and we deal with practically everything that has to do with mental health. We are mental health advocates. We are the ones who believe that action can be taken actively on one's mental health, and we also believe extensively that mental health is at the very core of our existence. So yes, if you're joining in, you're on the right path, and you get to realize that mental health has to do with everything we do every single day. It has to do with the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act, the way you reason is actually at the very core of your mental health. So it really needs a lot of attention that it probably does not get from a whole lot of people, but that is why we bring it to you at the convenience of your own homes. The things that you probably just overlook, some things that you overlook, some things that you do not know about, some things that you think that are not, they're not just it, some things that you just feel are common, something that you just feel are unnecessary. These are things that we bring to your viewing. These are things that we bring to your screen. These are things we bring to your online space because it is necessary. So nobody should tell you mental health is not necessary. This is one thing that is at the very core of our existence. Mental health revolves around a whole lot of things that has to do with our life. Your emotional stability, financial capability. I could go on and on. The way you think, feel, act, or reason is actually at the very core of your existence. So pay attention to your mental health is very important. And I am so sure that joining us tonight, you are one person that really feels or thinks that this is something worth your time. So it is not taken for granted. We really appreciate you taking our time to be a part of this tonight. So thank you for joining in on this. Very shortly, in fact, I'd like to tell you already, we'll be going live with our guests, and our guest is TJ Babajide. He's actually a pastor, he's a trainer, he's a life coach, he's a relationship coach, he is a psychologist, he is a bivocational speaker. In fact, the CV, or let's say the profile, is actually one that is quite attainable, yes, but it's something quite big and huge. Now put it that way. So our guest will be joining us shortly. We'll be joining us shortly on this Instagram session. So if you've been a part of this conversation for the last 2-3 weeks, you get to realize that we've been talking about verbal abuse. And I mentioned one time that verbal abuse is something that people consider as insignificant. But then you get to realize that words are powerful. Words are we are formed by words. Let me put that way. That's a religious belief. But words are very powerful. And then our Monday motivation for yesterday really explained the fact that words can actually be eggs. Like we'd always say, words are eggs, and then when you get thrown away, you cannot just put it together. So that's the same way when you utter a statement, it has an effect on someone else's mind, probably a child, probably an adult. Even as adults right now, there are times that we feel that okay, words have power over what we think, how we feel, or how we even reason. So yes, verbal abuse is one thing that we need to pay much attention on. And tonight we'll be focusing on verbal abuse and toxicity in a relationship. Yeah, so verbal abuse, like I've introduced in the last few weeks, is what I just said. Some of you feel like, permit me to say this in Yoruba, egba okin do me, but no sorrow see me man. So that is verbal abuse because it gets at you. It gets at you. And we talked about different signs of verbal abuse. We talked about different things that might happen when people are verbally abused. And one thing you get to realize that verbal abuse leads to emotional abuse, and emotional abuse leads to violence. Oftentimes, now out of 10 cases, you get to realize that 8 out of it usually would lead to violence. It ends as violence, and that's when we have domestic violence. That's when you have emotional. So many parts of violence you can have. In fact, there are stories that we've heard. There are tales that we've been told that most times women are usually more abused, or women are liable to get more abused. So most times I've been told stories of, okay, this couple, their marriage is going fine, and then one thing or the other changed, and then the man is hitting the wife, and then people are asking, what did the woman do? I just get to realize, okay, probably words. That is how sensitive words can be. That is how powerful words can be. And then we having a conversation on verbal abuse and toxicity in a relationship today is because it is of great importance today. So join me tonight. I welcome our guests today, Babaji Day, a life and relationship coach, a mental health expert and an advocate, a trainer, a bivocational speaker. He'll be joining us soon. We're waiting for him to connect. But this is one meeting that you sure will not want to miss out on. So yes, you could start sending this video, start sending it to DMs. No, okay, don't start. But I trust you'll be able to send this video into DM so other people can have access to this video, and our area network could spread wide. You know, our tentacles could spread wide, and you never can tell what help you'll be doing to someone or what help you'll be rendering to someone else at this time, at this hour. So yes, tonight with me, I have it is standing ovation and clapping. I have with me tonight. It's a very big privilege to have with me tonight.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very fine, thank you. How are you
Sorry.
doing too?
Very fine, thank you too. Sorry, it took me a while to come on board. There's a particular room I use for my Insta Live. It was a lot more comfortable, but I realized that the network there was horrible. So I had to keep moving till I found a place where in the house where the network is good. So apologies for coming in a bit late.
Apologies accepted, sir. We trust that network will remain permanent.
In Jesus' name.
So much for joining me.
Thank you.
About 2-3 weeks ago, when we were considering or when we were checking
you said
out,
what?
okay, so what we're going to have that's going to talk about verbal abuse, we're going to talk about it. And I said about 3 weeks ago, we were considering, my team and I, on who best would explain insightfully about the relationship, about verbal abuse and how it can be toxic in a relationship and all of that. And then sliding into your DM, I was like, what? I actually did not expect that. So it really is a privilege to have you on tonight. Thank you for joining in tonight, sir.
It's a great honor and privilege to be here too. You know, I always say to people that impacting life for me is a duty. So I'm just on duty tonight. Yeah, so here I am doing what I know best to do.
All right, so thank you if you're just joining in on this Instagram show. This is us tonight bringing verbal abuse again. For the last couple of weeks we've been talking about verbal abuse and other things. So now we're having a session tonight and it's going to be on toxic relationships. So stay tuned. Don't go away. Network stays permanent wherever you're at. It is a command. So get ready. Over to you, sir.
Yeah.
It's verbal abuse and
okay. So yeah. Is my face clear or should I increase the light? Can you see me clearly?
Yes, we can. We can see you clearly. I really can.
Okay. So yeah. The most form of abuse that is very popular is domestic violence, domestic abuse. But you know, inside domestic violence are deep-rooted. Can you hear me? Are deep-rooted forms of verbal abuse. And I've worked with several clients who have been abused one time or the other. I've worked with several, especially ladies who had been victims of domestic violence. And in their brief, they've always come up to say, I was terribly verbally abused. So we're going to look at, so there are different kinds of verbal abuse, or the different categories of verbal abuse. I'm going to try to explain each of them, the impact. I'm going to also talk about the effect of verbal abuse on the person who had been abused. And I would also share what to do to people who had gone through verbal abuse. So the first one is withholding information. So when you find people who are masters, you know, some people have that competence. I call it unconscious competence. You know, I was working with a couple and the guy was saying, I don't verbally abuse my wife, you know, but they were not even aware You know, I put in one of my blogs, I said there are two things worse than spiritual attack. When you are living in delusion and when you're unaware that you are doing the wrong thing, it's worse than spiritual attack. Because, you know, when it's spiritual attack, you know that you need to go and see, you need to take it up spiritually and fight. But when you are living in delusion and you are not even aware, it makes it a lot more difficult. So the first category is with people who withhold information. You know, they begin to do certain things, but they shield it from their partner. Another one is manipulation, manipulating them with words, manipulating them with their action. So I'm going to merge in verbal and emotional abuse because it's difficult to sometimes separate them. Okay, so there are people who are masters at manipulating. If the lady goes right, they say she's going to right. If she goes left, she says she's going to too much to the left. Then there's also people who discount the personality of the person that is being abused. They say things like, they are saying you are fine. When they're calling fine girls, are you part of them? Madam, go and sit down somewhere. You know, that is discounting. Some people discount their spouse or discount their fiancé, discount the person they're in a relationship with. And they do that because they want to feel superior. They feel, and also I need to mention the personality type of people who abuse. People who abuse other people are suffering from an identity crisis. They're suffering from low self-esteem. So they need to put the other person down so that they can feel that they're superior. Okay, so this morning I was having a session with a narcissist. A narcissist is someone who is always looking for compliments, and yet anytime they find, that person finds, when they feel corrected, they throw up the handle. Anyway, I don't want to distract myself. The third category are people who do name calling. That one is the most popular. You know, people, you are in a relationship with someone and he begins to do name calling, calls you a bitch, calls you all manner of unpleasant names, use your issues to abuse you, you know, so calls you a fool, says that you don't think, why are you behaving like a fool? Your mates are, look at what your mates are doing. That's, you know, name calling. And also because our society unconsciously has handed over name calling from one generation to another. I like research. So I did a research about name calling, and I realized that name calling had always been from the days of the colonial masters, when the British would call the slaves, you are foolish, you're stupid, you're a bastard. You know, they say that then our great-grandfathers picked up name calling as a way of making someone who does less than what is expected to feel bad. Then it was transferred that way. So the history of name calling goes back to the days where our forefathers were, the British came to Nigeria, and how they've been trying to, or they tried to take Nigerians as slaves. That's the history. If you go and Google it. So name calling is part of our fabric. So a lot of people who call other people names, they saw their parents or their guardian do it. And I always say this, behavior is never original to anyone. All of us, as we're standing, as you're listening to me, we all learn it. We all learn bad behavior. Every child is born plain. Every child is born innocent. It's the DNA, the environment, the parents, the roles they played, the educational journey that shaped their values and their beliefs. A lot of people have inherited opinions. They have inherited behaviors. And so when you grow up in a domestic toxic environment, the tendencies for you to replicate it is very high. Okay, so for you find a guy who is name calling to a lady that he claims he loves, go and check their history. Is it that the mom as one time or the other engaged in verbal abuse, or there's a neighbor who has engaged in verbal abuse, or his dad had engaged in verbal abuse? Because behavior is learned. You know, it is deep in the fabric of our culture to do name calling. Okay, so another one is okay, I mentioned manipulation. Threatening is also another form of verbal abuse. When someone opens the mouth and says, if you don't do what I ask you to do now, I will just break up with you. I will break up. If you're not careful, we break up with you. It's a form of verbal abuse. You think that you are inspiring the person to pick up his life, but that's a form of verbal abuse. Okay. Another type of verbal abuse is ordering your partner about. Hey, Simi, go and bring bread from the kitchen. Then when you are coming with the bread, should I tell you that you should bring knife? Will I use my mouth to cut the bread? Okay. So there's you want to say something?
I said that sounds familiar. I think every African mother does that. Like, they ask you to bring something, and you're like, should I tell you to bring spoon
That you
along?
should bring another. You see, that's another thing. A lot of you will be shocked. I think we should do verbal abuse from parents. A lot of our parents abused us verbally.
Yeah.
A lot of them. A lot of our parents did name calling. You know, I grew up meeting my dad to call my mom Ode. She should be Ode bye.
Love language.
So if not that I renewed my mind, then I was exposed to another family that they weren't doing name calling. When I get into any relationship, I have tendencies to say Ode. Okay, so behavior is learned, and I'm going to share. I like to use myself as a guinea pig because stories are powerful. So I share a very classic story with you as we go on. So I grew up in a polygamous home. My dad had 2 wives. I'm the first son, the only son from my mom. I had 3 other siblings. I have a stepson, a stepmom who had 3 kids also. And there was something my dad used to do, and I've shared this story. People that listen to me will have heard this story over and over. And it's because I try to use that story to explain how behavior is learned.
Wow.
One of the most embarrassing days of my life was when my mom and my dad dropped me in school. Then I got to my school was a 3-story building, I think. I got to the 3rd floor and I saw my dad and my mom hitting themselves by the car in front of the class that I was meant to enter. I mean, just imagine how humiliating that was. Anyway, when we get back home, when my father and my mom had issues, my dad would bang the door on my mom and walk out of the room. You know, when they have heated arguments, my dad will hit the door, bang the door in it. I mean, no matter where you are in the house, the sound of the door will so reverberate that you have to know something is happening. So wow. I said to my siblings, I will never be like my father. I reject it in Jesus' name. I bind it. I chromotology, all those kind of things. I prayed all I could. Got married. Guess what, Simi? 6 months into my marriage, my wife upset me. Guess what I did? I slammed the door and I walked out on my wife.
Okay.
So what's the moral of the story? As much as my conscious mind was rejecting what my dad did, my subconscious mind, which is like my operating system, could not reject it because our operating system always does a catch up with our conscious mind. So life is like a blender. Life is like, you know, that squeezing machine that squeezes juice. That's where life is.
Yeah.
So when I do, that's what I do a program called a marriage accountability program or relationship accountability program, usually for people who are either dating, in relationship and all of that. And when there are issues, I've seen people can say things like, my husband has changed, my fiancé has changed. And I always tell them, nobody changed. There was just no way they could express what was inside of them. So life threw emotional bullets at them that squeezed what was already inside them. Okay, so wow. That behavior was already inside of me. It was marriage that squeezed it out. You know, when you wash, I'm not so very good with washing, but when you wash, my wife is always saying that this water from the soap still has some lather that I need to rinse it again. Okay, my wife is so sensitive to soap. Even if it wasn't there when you were washing, when you rinse the clothes and you squeeze it, you know, my wife will say, you use the Premier or you use the, you know, so that's exactly how life is. Life squeezes out of us what we have studied. A lot of us, we have done subliminal learning. We have done subconscious learning. So we are unconsciously competent doing the wrong thing. And we are confidently ignorant about what we're doing. And so there are too many people who are in relationships who are confidently ignorant. You know, it's one thing to be ignorant. It's another thing when you are when you have confidence ignorance. When you are doing the wrong thing confidently and you are not even aware. It's worse than spiritual attack. I'm telling you, because you will be defending your foolishness. As much as you can call a wise man, you can call a wise man a foolish man, the same way you can call a foolish man a wise man, there is a set of behavior that a man needs to display before we say they are foolish. There's a set of behavior a man needs to begin to display to say that they are wise. There are too many unwise singles, too many unwise husbands and wives, and they're not even aware that they're self-sabotaging. They're not aware that they have toxic emotions. They're not aware that they have learned. I mean, when I do marriage counseling, marriage coaching with clients, I'm always quick to tell them to tell me about their past. Because everyone is running a script, Simi. The way you are standing there, you are running a script. The beginning of life, or the beginning of you following the journey of who you were designed to be, is when you now decide to rescript yourself. Because the script we're running, we're unconscious of it. We've been scripted by our parents, our guardian. We've been scripted by our aunties, our uncles, the environment where we lived. So we have inherited behaviors. We have inherited values. Nobody sits down and says that I want to shape my value. Today is the 8th day of June. I begin to shape my value. No. Values are unconsciously built. Beliefs are unconsciously built over the years. And that's why I say to people that you are happy when your values are validated. You are sad when your values are violated. Wow. So, yeah. So when that? Okay, you are happy when your values are validated. You are sad when your values are violated. So the best way to know your values, I always say to people, write your top 5 values. The best way to know your values is to ask yourself, what are the things that get me angry regularly? If you are someone who likes respect, when you are disrespected, you will be upset. If you're someone who likes respect, when you are respected, you will be happy. Why? Because the person is validating your values. The other person is violating your values. So your emotion is dwindling and between violation of your values and validation of your values. However, not many couples sit down together and do a value list. You know, so I picked anger. Another thing I also want to say was the fact that I inherited anger from my dad. My dad inherited it from my grandfather.
Wow.
So my dad told me that, so I asked my dad, and it's also, I always say this to people that listen to me, always ensure that you find out about your history. Anyone that doesn't know their history cannot be sure of their future. Because if you're not careful, your history can sabotage the future that you have envisioned. So I asked my dad, I said, so tell me about your own dad. He said, oh, your own granddad, which was my dad, died over his coffle. I said, tell me about it. He said one day, okay, my grandfather was a distributor with Nigerian breweries. So he used to sell beer somewhere, I think Kukiado or somewhere. Then one day, out of his anger issues, someone was owing him money, and they got into a scuffle, and that guy broke a bottle on his head, and he died. Okay? When I used to go to the secretariat with my father, I saw that my father had anger issues. Then I started growing up. Then my sister used to say, TJ Oman Binu, TJ Oman Binu. Then it looks like I'm facing a generational problem. In fact, I always like to say that what we call generational causes are generational behavior. Generational patterns. So there are patterns that has been, he didn't know what happened to his own grandfather, but me, I was, just because my father is a medical doctor, was a medical doctor before he passed on. And you know, when you go to the hospital, they will tell us your family history. So I used to hear him say that. So I imbibe that to my life, because if you discount your history, you will not be able to fulfill your get to the fullness of your destiny. Anyway, so I said all of that to say that people who abuse, people who are abusive, have also been victims, or they've been part of an abusive homes. They've been part of dysfunctional homes. You know, that's another topic we need to talk about. Real talk with Simi. You need to talk about dysfunctional homes, the consequences and the implication on society. That's the topic I'm giving to you for free.
That's into consideration.
So we all have we learned our behaviors from our parents, from our guardian. So back to my own story, I learned anger, so I had to unlearn it. When I got married in 2006, two things that were my issues. Number one, I just didn't like the fact that when my dad and mom had issues, then they can go into weeks of strife. They won't talk to each other. When I got married, when I had issues with my wife, I would just shut down. We won't greet ourselves for 3-4 days. Then one of my friends who was a bit older said, this is a spiritual attack. Let's go to the mountain. Eh? So, Simi, we went to the mountain and we prayed. The sad part of it was that 3 months after we came back from the mountain, my wife gets me angry again. I slammed the door on her. I walk out on her. I walked out on her. At the same time, we will enter into fight. We won't greet ourselves. We're doing konko jabile, kandukulo and shit here. We just, So, and I sat down one day and I said, this is a generational curse. This is a generational pattern. I saw this with my uncle. I saw this with my dad. I'm repeating the same thing. Then I started doing coaching and started studying neuro-linguistic programming. Then I realized that my problem was not spiritual. My problem was psychological. It was in my soul. It was because I had learned unconsciously how not to treat a woman. So I've used the how not to treat a woman as how to treat a woman. So I had to sit down. The Bible says if a man wants to build a tower, he has to first sit down and count the cost. And I asked myself, they used to ask us when we were small, this behavior, can you hand it over to your children? I said, no. Those things were very, very instructive to me. Then in 2009, I attended a conference. Okay, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes. What you mentioned just now, that when you were little, there's be a question of this behavior, can you hand it over to your child, right? There's another one too. I don't know if I verify if it goes line in line. There's a question of the way you act. Can you marry someone with your same character or with the same character as you do or something? So I don't know if it goes like get that or it is just by DNA.
Well, I think that, okay, so I will cap it up this way. So one exercise I did in 2009 that helped me. So I attended a conference. The man came in from the US and he said, I've got an exercise for you. This exercise turned my life around. They ranted around it. And he asked in a very subtle bedroom voice, and I want everyone listening to me to also do it. And he asked and said, have you ever attended your funeral? Blood of Jesus, blood of Zechariah. Which funeral? And he started talking about and he started asking questions. He said, when we're gone, what is going to be left with us? When we're gone is our behavior, our conduct, our lifestyle. I said, I said everyone should close their eyes. And he said, imagine this is your corpse at 80. You are long gone. Your neighbors are there. They're saying things about you. Your condolence register is there. They're saying things about you. Your colleague at work, they're here. They're saying things about you. Your team members in your unit in church, they're here. They're saying things about you. He said, what would you want them to be saying when you are gone? He said, we should write it down. He said, what you are doing now, will it add up to what you saw them say to you at the end? The whole class went silent. What that exercise did for me, it made me to be more intentional. It made me to review my conduct, and he now took it further. After we did that, he now said, because we're Africans and we're very respectful, not everyone will say what is in their mind. Some people will have something in their mind and say something else just to be in the good books of the children. He said, can you imagine that they plug the computer? Can you imagine that they plug the computer to the heart of everyone who came for your funeral? And we can read on the screen what they are thinking about. and that broke me to pieces.
You told me
So
right
uh,
about it. And I'm confused.
so he now said we should go back to today and now ask ourselves, what are the 5 things that we need to stop doing? What are the 5 things we need to start doing? Or if you want to make it 10, he gave us time. He was playing very soft music, jazz music, and I started saying, okay, I need to stop anger. I need to stop living in strife. I need to stop this. He also mentioned it that we're complaining about our behavior now, but if we're not careful, we're going to hand over those same behavior to our children. And that broke me down. It's a very powerful exercise. I recommend for everyone to do it. Okay,
Oh.
so what I'm saying in essence is my own transformation started when I placed what I was doing on the scale. And I asked myself, at the end of it all, will I be happy that I am seen this way? Will I be happy? Will my kids be proud of me if they read some of the things that people um, are thinking about me on the screen? Having said that, I can go on and on about different kind of abuse, from abusive anger, when people yell at you, they scream. I mean, there are about 10 or 12 of them, but the reality is, I want to cap it up to something. Anyone who would want to have a healthier, happy relationship needs to go back and dig the garbage they are coming from. You see, the problem in relationships are largely based on the garbage people are carrying from their past.
Mm.
So
Not the
there's
art,
no,
everything compiled.
yes, something they saw with their class teacher, something they saw with their parents, one behavior they saw with their uncle. So everyone is coming with the baggage. And that's why it's important I like your topic, emotions and therapy. It's important for anyone who will have a healthier, happier marriage to go for therapy so that you can be healed of the wounds of the past, so that you won't rob Peter for what Paul did. There are too many people who rob Peter for what Paul did, and it's because they have inherited behaviors, inherited opinions, inherited personalities that they don't know anything about. So for me, coaching, attending a therapy course, psychology, and all of that helped me to begin to rescript myself. Everyone needs a rescripting, because your values were shaped without your consent, by your environment. So two things, people who do verbal abuse, two things happen to them. Number one, this has been confirmed from research that people who do verbal abuse are either from a dysfunctional background or they are from an abusive home.
Oh.
Because you see, you can't do what you have not tasted. It's just that there's a way by which you cook jollof rice. The way you cook jollof rice is different from the way I'll cook mine. But you learned how to cook jollof rice based on how your mother cooked it. I'm sure you've heard the story before of a particular lady who got married, beautiful looking lady who got married to a very handsome guy. And every time the lady goes to the market, she cut the tail of the fish and throws the tail away. Then cut the remaining and fries it. So one day the husband got a bit furious and said, "Why is it that you cut the tail of the fish away every time you fry the fish?" He said, "Well, that's the way my mom used to do it too. So I don't even know, but I think the tail of the fish doesn't taste well." So one day they had holiday and they went to visit their mom. And their mom, so they got to the kitchen and said, "Mommy, I want to ask you, Grandma, my wife always cut the tail of the fish, and he said he saw it from you. Why is it that you normally cut the tail of fish?" He said, "Oh, those days I was raising your wife and the siblings, our fry pan was small. So I used to cut the tail of the fish away so that the fish can stay in the frying pan." Wow. The guy shook his head. I'm like, "You wasted my money." That's the way we are in life. A lot of us have values that we don't question. We have beliefs that we don't question. We just swallow the values and the belief. Hook, line, sinker, the fisherman is boat and his boat. Okay, so the beginning of the fullness of the expression of you is to question your values, to ask yourself, this anger, where did I see it in this person? Okay, do I like how that person ended up? No. Do I want to end up that way? No. If your answer is no, then what will you now do? What will you need to stop doing? What will you need to start doing to correct that? What accountability partner will I need to have? Because too many people are hurting. And every human being, we all have interferences. Every human being always would have emotional bullets shot at them. So I always say that the three sources of emotional bullets: people, places, and events. People, places, and events. So emotional bullets from your wife or your spouse, from your parents, from your landlord, from downfall driver, you know. But you see, someone had asked me earlier today, so I mean, it's not about me, it's about the king. Is this artist's fault? I always say to people, you can't blame people for who they are, but you take responsibility for who you are. So the guy is abusive. You can't change him more. You can't change him until he seeks help. Over this last weekend, a couple signed up. Thank you, there. A couple signed up to me to do a marriage accountability program with me. And one of the things I found out from them was the fact that both of them came from a dysfunctional background. So the guy said to me, my dad used to beat my mom. The girl said to me, my mom and my dad are always fighting. So both of them saw fight as a reward for anyone who upset them, irrespective of their gender. So it was a norm. You know, what even broke the camel's back was that the guy broke the lady's phone, broke the TV in the room, said it was the wife that bought it. They now took stone to go and break the windscreen of the car of the wife. Terrible anger issues. Or when I sat down with them, I realized that all this behavior was inherited. The guy said to me that at one point, my dad picked the big TV, the hunchback TV in our house, and threw it on the floor when he was fighting my mom. Guess what happened? He repeated the same thing. It was after I had finished doing it, realized that, whoa, this looks like a film I've watched before. So that's why our subconscious mind does catch up. So, yeah, I'm listening to you. Go ahead. You said what?
Emotions, therapy, verbal abuse, relationship issues, just go ahead and type it in the comment section below. We'll respond to questions before the session rounds off. So just go ahead and kindly send this video to people's DM. You can send the links, you can share the links on your status so every other person could have easy access to this video. And do not forget to follow also on our page. So right now, back to you, sir.
Okay, so because of time, how many more minutes do I have?
You have about 10 minutes, sir.
10? Are you serious? Okay, so let me also talk about the effect. So what's the effect of verbal abuse? People who experience verbal abuse often end up with low self-esteem. They have anxiety disorder. They have tendencies for depression. There's what we call post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, among many other things. And they're also prone to mental health issues. You know, so those are the effects of people who experience verbal abuse, because verbal abuse is usually very, very daunting. It's usually very challenging for people to bear, especially when there's a lot of connection to the person who they feel the person is the breadwinner. They feel the person who they've been in love with over the years is the person who had been there for them. So there's a level of attachment that is unhealthy. So there's unhealthy attachment, and sometimes it's very difficult for them to detach. And you see, most times when people are in an abusive relationship, they begin to develop shock absorber for the behavior. So for example, for someone who has disappropriate abuse, someone who reacts too aggressively to small issues, gradually, just like cars have shock absorber, they just begin to develop shock absorber for it. And I'm going to share a story to also validate that. Yeah, the story of a fisherman, and he got back home and he wanted to he caught fishes, and of course he killed them. Then he caught this frog, and he didn't know how to kill a frog. He had never caught a frog in his life, but he had his friend talk about the fact that it was good to put frog in the stew. So he boiled water and put the frog inside, and because he was still enjoying the very wonderful nature of the frog, he was gradually, he put the temperature at 10 degrees, then gradually made it 12 degrees. He was increasing the temperature. The frog would say, I can cope now. There's nothing wrong. It is hot water. Then after a while, the frog would say, I can cope now. Till finally, poof, the frog died. That's the way people who are in abusive relationship, they develop thick skin. In fact, I've worked with a lady before that said to me, Mr. T, don't you think I deserve to be beaten? With this my sharp mouth. Hey, even if I'm dating you, you will beat me. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's the height of low self-esteem, So that person, and one of the challenges is a lot of people see themselves as victims. No. If you're listening to me, someone who has been verbally abused, please tell them not to. They're not victims, they're survivors. Okay? Okay, so mental health issues. Also, then what does the person now need to do? If you find anyone who had been emotionally abusive, who has had one form of manipulation, has been controlling the relationship, how do I take my life back from that person? The first thing is, don't ever think that you're a victim. Don't ever.
Sorry.
Thank you. Stop all of this self-doubt. Some people feel they deserve it. They feel, I could deserve being abused. And you see, those kind of people, they are at the hem of the they have. They just feel that they deserve to be beaten. They feel, no one deserves to be beaten. We're human beings and we're not human animals. And everyone deserves to be treated in a very right way. So what are the steps of coming out of an abusive relationship? Number one, step out of denial. A lot of people are in denial. I've had the lady say to me before that he was just angry. It was because his boss at work was stressing him. That's why he beat me. No, don't find excuse for people who is abusing you. It's a pattern. And anyone that abuses you in courtship will beat you in marriage, because it's the law of progression. He will give it to you, good measure, pressed down, shaking together, running over. Okay. Number two thing to do for anyone who's in an abusive relationship is find alternative sources of peace, alternative sources of joy. Attend a worship conference, buy Million of a Thousand Life and laugh in front of the TV. Change your lifestyle. Number three, surround yourself with a very healthy, positive support system. It's been realized that people with healthy support system, they come out of abusive relationships faster than people who are isolated. So find people who love you, people who are positive, people who have the same values with you. Talk to them. Find one of them that you can be vulnerable with, that you can share your stuff with. I will not use it against you. Those things help a great deal. Also, develop affirmations. You need to look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm wonderfully and fearfully made. I love myself. I always talk about this affirmation. You need to say to yourself, I love myself, I believe in myself, I accept myself. It's good to see you, Dari. Dari, thank you for joining in. So look in the mirror and say, I love myself, I'll accept myself, I believe in myself. I always say this to people who cares to listen. You need to learn to blow yourself a kiss and catch it. So, Simi, you're just so beautiful. So don't wait for anybody to give you a kiss. Give yourself a kiss. Also self-care. When people come out of abusive relationships, the tendency is for them to feel worthless, hopeless, and clueless. So don't say, the person I'm doing my hair for before I broken up with the person. No. Go to the salon, do a very good hairstyle, do makeup, take yourself out for lunch. When you take yourself out for lunch, don't buy yourself Zobo, buy yourself dry dinner, or buy yourself malt. Eat a good meal. And look at yourself in the mirror when you get to the restroom and say it was nice spending time with you. So you said, yeah, self-care. Go to the spa. do your nails, go and carve your eyebrow, make your favorite hairstyle, paint your nails, wear your best outfit. If your roommate says, "Where are you going?" Say, "I'm taking myself out for lunch." You know?
Uh,
Oh, yes. You don't need anybody to tell you they love you. Say to yourself, "I love myself, I accept myself." Say to yourself, "I'm wonderfully and fearfully made." Okay?
yes,
Also, you
yes.
need to stop all contact with the abusive person. Block them if you will. Because sometimes they want to do things to make you feel bad. They can put their dinner, put pizza, maybe something both of you used to enjoy, especially when you find some of them who are very toxic and very manipulative. They put on their status things that you used to do together, and it makes you start to feel like, "I wish I was still with him." No, he is an Abednego. Let him go. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, sir. All right. So we have someone who just dropped a comment right now, and that's Kenny
Okay.
D Cutie. Says, "I can relate. I once read an article. The lady claimed
Yeah.
if a guy doesn't love her in a relationship, that means he doesn't love her, and she's so bent that she's right, and no one can change her mentality." So
She's
that
that's what I call perverted thinking. She's so she needs help. She has low self-esteem, one, two. She's been wrongly scripted by people around her to think that beating is a validation of correction. Yeah, I told you earlier before this question was asked that I worked with a
yes.
lady before that said to me that because of her sharp mouth, she deserves to be beaten. So it's wrong. It's wrong programming. Is a wrong way of thinking. It's one of the worst things that anyone can do to himself. That person is wallowing in a lot of low self-esteem. That person has self-disempowering beliefs and thoughts, and that person isn't fit for a relationship. He needs therapy, and that person needs to come out of it. No one deserves to be beaten. Abusive relationships are abusive relationships, and it has to be kept that way.
Yeah. Okay, so another question I like to ask quickly also is that most times in a relationship or in some
Mm,
relationships, not all, some relationships get to realize that okay, as a last week we talked about the abused and the abuser, so to say, in quote, and we
mm,
realize that the being abused, that's the victim, is probably financially dependent most times on the partner.
yeah.
Having a life with nothing, no job. She has kids, and then we've even had, in fact, I've had stories of some mothers that say that Tori or money those kind
Mm,
of situations ahead. So in that case, the husband or the father is the breadwinner, so to say. So they are financially dependent. In that case, how would you or what would you suggest to such person to or what step can
okay,
such
so
person take?
there are four reasons why it is difficult for people to leave an abusive relationship. The first, like you said, is financial dependency. The second is emotional dependency. The third is societal expectation. The fourth is religious expectation. The reality is, I'm going to take it one by one. For financial dependency, yes, for obvious reasons, there's no other place to go. But all of the people that are saying it's because of my children, I'm staying in an abusive marriage. They don't look at the consequences of it, because people who stay in an abusive relationship, they're already allowing the kids to experience what will make them also think of entering into an abusive relationship. Don't forget, I said to you earlier that we all are scripted. We learn our behavior from the people around us. So people like that who are victims, I call them victims of domestic violence, have tendencies to feel the same way. When they're abused, they would also stay in the relationship. So it's foolishness on the long run to say it's because of your children that I'm staying in a relationship. There is a worse hit. They might be providing money for you. There might be financial solution. It's good to see Harry Akinola. Thank you, Mr. Harry. Dr. Harry. It's not worth it. So what are the advice at that time is you got to find your family as a support, so that Just this Saturday, I was sharing the same thing with a lady who had been in an abusing relationship for years, and she kept saying it's because of my children. I told her the consequences. She told me my daughter hates my husband. My son hates my. One day he said his son said, if I find a knife now, I can even kill. I can shoot my dad. That's the word he used. So already you are exposing them to hatred. You're exposing them to animosity, and on the long run, God forbid, if they find expression to those things they're thinking, there'll be homicide. Okay, so the thing to do is talk to family. Abusive relationship, because abusive relationship have tendencies to give you a sense of codependency, to say, hey, I can't leave, he's the one paying my bills. It's not Jehovah Jireh. Okay, so that step of faith is needed to go to look at look for social support, a family support, where you can move out of the house and go seek help, because even you at that time you need to be emotionally healed. Okay, then that person also and I need to also mention about religious expectation. All of this, God hates divorce. It's not a lie, but it's not a total truth about the situation. I always say this to people who are in domestic or are in abusive relationship: separate first. Let both of you go and seek help. Then now give an attempt whether the marriage can work again. Not that you're saying that I don't want to leave, God hate divorce. I mean, I've been at the burial of 2 of my clients. Very sad story. One of them kept their religious beliefs. God hate divorce. God hate divorce. The next time I got a call from the family, he was come and attend her funeral. Her husband hit her head against the bathtub and she never came out of it. The other one was a very popular story in Aja. The husband pushed the lady out from the 3rd floor and she never came out of it. Okay, so, and it was due to religious expectation. What will they say in my church? What will they say? God hate divorce, so let's keep praying till it's fine. Someone has started beating you, broke your phone, broke TV in the house, one day threw the plate of stew at you, and you dodged it, and you are saying, no. Then also societal expectation. That is what I call self-imposed stressors. Okay, by societal expectation, because of what we expect that people will see, or what we don't know how to face society, we put ourselves under. Stress is not a bad thing, but there are self-imposed stressors that trigger negative emotions, that even give you a worse impact on the long run. Okay, so apart from financial dependency, emotional dependency, especially for people with low self-esteem, people who feel that they cannot be, they can't stand alone, they feel if they don't, especially also for ladies. I need to mention this to ladies. I realize that most ladies that keep saying, I'm ready for a relationship, and if you check their history and they had absentee fathers, they're still looking for their father in their fiancé. Okay? So, and there are a lot of times when I say people who are dysfunctional, I'm not saying that the mother and the father are separated, though. When a man is physically present but emotionally absent, you're already raising dysfunctional children. And that's why for my daughter, every time I see my daughter, I always say to her, man, you're beautiful. I say to her, your hair is beautiful. So I say to her, you don't need to hear it outside. Before anyone says it, I've said it. Before I say it, you need to say it yourself. Because you see ladies do hair, they take picture and put it on social media. Nobody has even said my hair is fine. Say it to yourself. They're looking for external validation. They have grown up to believe that external validation is what affirms that they're beautiful and they're fine. So those kind of tendencies to have emotional dependency, then societal expectation, religious expectation. Sometimes they will need to talk to a therapist or a coach, a third party who doesn't have any emotional attachment to what's happening, who can help them gain clarity on what to do. There are too many people who are in the heat of it, and yet they are expecting that the other person will change. No, you can't change. I always say this: take responsibility for who you are. Leave the other person for who they are. You say, I greeted him, he didn't greet me back. That is who he is. That's not who you are. Don't allow what he's doing to change who you are. Okay? Yeah. And a lot of people also who are emotionally dependent is because they haven't forgiven themselves. They feel like even not that this, even not that. No, there is nothing that validates any human being to be in an abusive relationship. Nothing under the sun. So And usually I always say this, it's only a quack that will do prescription without diagnosis. People call me on phone and say, my husband is beating me, what should I do now? I said, I'm not a quack. It's only quacks that do prescription before diagnosis. I need to ask you, three ladies might be in a abusive relationship, and their situation or cases can be totally different. Okay, so some of the things that I mentioned are just part of what they can do as a coping mechanism before they find help from a therapist or a psychotherapist that can help them do that talk therapy. I believe in cognitive behavioral therapy, a talk therapy that can help people come out of that emotional state. Because you see, forgiving yourself and forgiving that other person, it's also a journey. And that's why those that submit in their relationship, once you break up, I always say you are on suspension for 6 months. There's still one of my proteges that is dragging that with me. I say, why should I be on suspension for 6 months? I say, because when you cut your hand, your nail, when you have a wound on your hand, everyone knows you have a wound. It takes a while before the wound heals. Okay? The issue with your emotional wound is that it's not exposed to anyone. So if you don't heal before you love, you will hurt the person. People who hurt are always looking for love. When they find another person who loves them, they will begin to divulge what they should not divulge to them. So a lot of times we're a reflection of what we are responding to. So it's a continuum, and it's a mix, and it requires thorough. Sometimes for people with from domestic violence and people from toxic relationships, 2 sessions I'm still taking briefs, because as you're asking this question, you are linking it to something else. So yeah, those are the things that I think.
Wow, it's been an amazing 1 hour already. All right, so it's almost an hour actually, and it really has never. It doesn't even look like so much time has passed away. Checking time now, I realized
I
what?
think that was just about 30 minutes.
Yes,
You
that's very
know.
correct. Instagram is actually for 1 hour, so we might get
Yeah.
cut off. Now this is it. We have some other questions that are coming in on WhatsApp. Some people are actually sending more questions on WhatsApp. But what we're thinking of doing is to forward the questions right into your DM and then receive answers, or probably refer people to you if that is fine, just via DM.
That's fine by me. That's I told you I'm on duty, so I'm the doctor on duty tonight.
Thank you so
Always
much.
A pleasure.
Really insightful discussion with you tonight. Verbal abuse and toxicity in a relationship. So Instagram just notified me, and there's a countdown already. We have 1 minute, 50 seconds countdown already. So
yeah, yes, I want us to discuss dysfunctional families and the impact of it on society, because there are too many people who are victims of dysfunctionality and they're not even aware, and there are traits of how to know them and what to do to help them.
Well, we would definitely keep in touch, sir. And like you said, I'm on your speed dial now, so
yes. So
they come through. We'll be ending this live session soon, and I trust that this was impactful for you. Shout out to every of our audience from every part of the country, from every part of the world. Thank you for joining in. That's been an amazing night with you. That's been an amazing session, and standing ovation.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us. I look forward to having you some other time. So, kindly follow
I look forward to be back here.
Visiting for the first time. Kindly follow us. So stay tuned to this account, and then we trust that this mental health journey is going to be a really productive one. So stay tuned, stay connected, stay safe, and always remember you matter. Your sanity is your priority. Do not get pressured into things. Good night, everybody. See you some other time. Thank you so much.
All right, good night, Simi. Shalom.